My name is Gavin Evans, and this is my video of the biggest surprises of 2023. Movies where I went in with low expectations, but I ended up enjoying them. So let's begin with the first movie I'll mention, and it's Infinity Pool. Now, this movie is directed by Brandon Cronenberg, who directed Antiviral, a movie I hate, and he directed Possessor, a movie that I think is perfectly fine. And I think this is easily his best movie yet. It has sat very well with me, and it just has a lot on its mind about the wealthy and accountability, and it explores that in a very unique way. It manages to be trippy and visually stunning without becoming pretentious, and I think the performances are very good. Alexander Skarsgård is great as this guy who just keeps getting emasculated throughout the entire movie, and then you've got Mia Goth who just gives one of the best performances of the year. She is phenomenal here, filled with energy and personality, and it's a movie that I really liked. The next movie I'll mention is Meg to the Trench. Now, everybody despises this movie. I've seen it mentioned on almost every worst of the year list. And I'm going to be honest, I was going to skip out on this movie, but I thought, let's just give it a try. And then the movie malfunctioned, so I had to wait an extra half hour for it to start. And I thought about leaving and just asking for a refund because I didn't want to sit through this movie. And I'm glad I waited out because I had fun with it. Now, is it great? No, I've got issues. The first act sucks. Some of the acting is really bad. The way they treat the girlfriend from the first movie just didn't sit well with me. But once they get trapped at the bottom of the ocean, this movie becomes a lot of fun. It just reminded me of a B movie, and not with Jerry Seinfeld. But the visual effects are very questionable, but it kind of works to the movie's advantage. It kind of creates this B movie charm. I like the amount of monsters you get. I think some of the action is legitimately really good. Like when Jason Statham is fighting that guy on the conveyor belt, I thought it was exciting. The entire last 40 minutes is like non-stop action, and I was highly entertained. It kind of becomes a dinosaur movie, and the final kill is perfection. I think Jason Statham has lots of personality, and he carries this movie incredibly well. And I liked how stupid it can be. You can't go outside, the pressure will kill you. Not if I breathe out my nose. Loved it. I cracked up. It made me laugh plenty of times. And when they go back up to the surface and we see the villain grabbing onto something, it can be a really fun, entertaining movie. I enjoyed it. I think it's much better than the first one, so that's why it's on this list. And then we've got Beau is Afraid. And look, I'm just going to be honest. I'm not the biggest fan of Ari Aster. I like Hereditary, but I think it is vastly overrated. I actually think Midsommar is great. I love that movie. I think it's as good as people say Hereditary is. But still, his movies are very long, they're very slow, and A24 movies aren't typically my thing. And I heard lots of people despise this movie. So I went in expecting to be bored. And what I wasn't expecting is for the first half of this movie to be perfection. I love the first half of this movie. It is hilarious. It is some of the sharpest, funniest writing of the entire year. Like when he has to go cross the street to get some water and there's a guy with a knife in the middle of the street, I'm just like, this is fantastic. Or the neighbor who keeps knocking on the door telling him to keep it down. Like, there was just so many quick, small little jokes that I really enjoyed, and I thought this was going to be one of my favorites of the year. Then the second half happens, and I still admire certain qualities to it. I think the production design regarding the play and the words is fantastic. I think the penis in the attic scene is actually really funny, but it just drags on for far too long. If they shorten it up to 2 hours and 10 minutes, I feel like I still could have loved this movie, but it's 3 hours, it is stretched out. I get what they're saying, I just didn't need that amount of time to explore it. Joaquin Phoenix is fantastic in this movie. I also think Kaylee Wardrose is great here. Like, she's in it for just a few minutes, but she really stands out. Between this and Landscape with Invisible Hand, which will not be on this list because it's going to be on another list of my favorite movies, I think she was the breakout actress this year. I thought Nathan Lane and Amy Wine stood out really well. Yeah, so I still like enough of this movie. I definitely enjoyed. I just wish the second half wasn't so boring. And then we get to The Creator, and this movie I wasn't excited for. It looked repetitive, like the same sci-fi premise we've seen a billion times. And it is. You know, you've got a little bit of Avatar, a little bit of Blade Runner, a little bit of I, Warbot. You know, it's nothing new. It isn't. But I think Gareth Edwards directs this movie incredibly well. It is visually stunning to look at. With only an $80 million budget, that is so incredibly impressive. And I love how many different kind of environments you see. Whether it's in the mountain, or by the waters, or in the city, or in a crop field. It just looks big. It feels epic. I also love the world building. There's that one Warbot that runs and then blows up, and I loved that sequence. I love the tentacles at the end of this movie, and I thought you got yourself some really exciting action set pieces, and I thought you got yourself some genuine emotion, like when John David Washington dies, well, spoiler alert, at the end of this movie. I actually got a bit emotional. Now that said, in real life, you know, AI, just eliminate. I don't have any bit of sympathy for it in real life, but in terms of just a Hollywood movie, I thought it hit those beats it needed to. I thought Madeline Yuna gave an amazing performance. And yeah, it's definitely flawed. It's not great, but I was entertained by this movie much more than I thought I would be. The biggest issue is that it's too short. It needed an extra half hour. It felt cut down a bit. The next movie I'll mention is The Boogeyman, and this is a movie I really like. I went in with low expectations because everybody seemed to hate it, but I think you've just got yourself a really scary, atmospheric movie. Rob Savage directs this movie so incredibly well. I love how he uses lighting in the scale sequences. It kept me on edge. It got me quite a few times. I felt dread for the main characters. I was scared. And yeah, like the big issue I heard with this movie is that nobody turns on the lights. And yes, it is an issue, but to be honest, that's just every scary movie. I don't think it's that big of a deal. And I'd rather a scene where a character is playing a video game shooting arrows to light up the room than just turning on the lights. Like, if they turn on the lights and they didn't turn on, I feel like that could have been perfectly valid. So it's not that big of a deal for me. But my big issue with this movie is the human drama. Yeah, spoiler alert. The dad needed to talk to his kids about their mom, but I think going to a therapy session and the dad breaking down in tears in front of them, I think it goes too far the other way. And you can judge me if you want based on that, but I feel like the ending was, I don't agree with what it's trying to say. I don't. So, those are my thoughts on The Boogeyman. And I go to these movies for the scary stuff, and this movie succeeded. So, I was happy. And great sound design. The next movie I'll mention is Operation Fortune, which got dumped in March. It didn't even get a theatrical release in Canada. I heard everybody hated it. And I really enjoyed this movie. Is the plot anything new? No, absolutely not. I've seen this kind of movie so many times before, but here's the thing. The cast is fantastic. Jason Statham carries this movie incredibly well, lots of personality. Aubrey Plaza, so good in this movie, lots of personality. Josh Arnett, lots of personality, does a great job. Hugh Grant, lots of personality, he does a great job. So this movie is getting lifted up by the work of the actors involved, and I thought they brought enough charisma and energy and personality to this movie that I had a fun time. Some of the action is quite good. I do like Guy Ritchie's style, and it can be quite funny. So Nothing new, but a really entertaining movie. The next movie I'll mention is Bottoms. Well, I'm just going to be honest, I thought this was going to be like a super liberal movie, and it is to an extent, but it's also really funny. Like, this was one of the funniest movies I've seen this year. Um, yeah, no, it's just got this really sharp sense of humor, and it is so over the top and so goofy that it might not work for everyone, but it worked for me. I was highly entertained the entire time while watching it. I think that Idol Girl is so good in this movie. Rachel Sennott, I think, does a perfectly fine job, but all the supporting cast is really great. Um, and I also think Emma Slegman does such a great job directing this movie. It has such a unique style, and I like how it was a throwback to teen movies from the early 2000s. And yeah, like I thought this movie was just going to be annoying, but I really enjoyed it. And I hope it gets a physical release. Like, is this and Landscape with Invisible Hand just not coming out on Blu-ray? Like, that pisses me off. I want to buy this movie. The next movie I'll mention is The Equalizer 3. Now, I do not like the first movie. The second movie is bad up until a really strong last act. So I was going to skip out on this movie, but I gave it a try, and I'm glad I did because this movie has sat incredibly well with me. Now, it's not really an action movie. It's just about Denzel Washington hanging out with people, trying to find peace. But I thought this movie could be funny at times, and I thought it was just a great movie about, you know, coming to the end of your time and just what you want out of life. And I thought it was oddly kind of moving. The way he helps people out. Like, the reveal with Dakota Fanning completely worked for me. I know people just said her character's unnecessary, but honestly, the ending got to me a little bit. You got yourself some great action. Well, it's not as head-on as it used to be. It's more, he's operating from the shadows, and there was some brutal moments. I love seeing the aftermath. I think the movie's also beautifully shot. Really great looking movie. And yeah, like, to be honest, I liked this movie leaving the theaters, and I really, really like it now. Maybe even love it. Like, yeah, really good movie. Easily the best of the franchise. The next one I'll mention is God is a Bullet. Have you heard of this movie? Probably not, but everyone who has seen it hates it. This movie got terrible reviews. And it was 2 hours and 40 minutes, so I was dreading watching it. I love this movie. I'm not going to lie, it's not going to make my top 10 of the year. It's going to be right outside of it. Like, it has sat very well with me. I don't even think my review for it has come out yet, but I would bump up my grade even a bit. Like, it can be this very trashy, over-the-top action movie. Well, people's limbs are just blowing off, and it can be so exaggerated, but it can also be this very grounded, emotional movie, and I think it walks that fine line incredibly well. I love how you've got yourself this girl who's like tattooed up. She has gone through some terrible stuff, and she's working together with this really religious man, and they have conversations about religion and life and whatnot, and he kind of looks down on her, but she had very little control over what has happened to her, and she's trying to do better, and it's about how so much in our lives and how so much of how we end up can be out of our control. And I thought the relationship developed between the two of them was really well done. By the end of the movie, I'm not going to lie, like, I don't want to give anything away, that last scene got to me. I thought it was a very heartfelt ending. And Nikolai Coster-Waldau, I think, gives a great performance, but Make Him in War is phenomenal here. Like, if it was up to me, she'd be nominated for an Oscar for this movie. She really goes for it, and I was really impressed. I thought this was just going to be a why did I watch this kind of movie, and it ended up being I want more people to watch this. It's 2 hours and 40 minutes, and it flew by for me. And I also like how, you know, in order for him to infiltrate this gang, he has to tattoo himself up. And I don't know, I never seen that in a movie. Well, you have to permanently change how you appeal to people in order for this. Like, usually it's you have to kill a bunch of people, but you can easily get by on life pretending that you didn't do that. But here, the tattoos are for everyone to see, and I don't know, it's something that sticked really well with me. So honestly, this movie is great. I love it. But the biggest surprise, and I don't like to mention a movie here that's going to be in my top 10 best movies of the year, but I still have a few to see, so this could be left out. And if it does get kicked out of my top 10 list, then I don't want to not mention this movie. So it's no hard feelings. I love this movie. I skipped out on it in theaters because I was so uninterested, and then I watched it, and this movie has sat so incredibly well with me. I love 40 Year Old Virgin, Knocked Up, Neighbors, all those kind of R-rated comedies we used to get all the time. And this movie is the first one in a while that reminded me of them. Because as raunchy of a movie as this one is, it's also about characters who need to grow up, and I think it does such a great job with that. On a character level, this movie completely works, and it has one of the best dramatic scenes of the year. That man-eater scene is so freaking good. It really is. Like, it is a phenomenal scene. And on top of that, this movie is also really funny when he goes to the restaurant and he asks, "Do you have Pepsi?" "No, we only have Coke." "Oh, that cracked me up." Or when someone plays Pooh in the background and he just like is completely startled. This movie is filled with great jokes. The beach scene is great, of course. But it's also a great movie about looking for authentic relationships in today's day and age. How with the rise of social media and technology, it's becoming more rare, and how you need to treasure those that you actually care about. And the ending of this movie, it tugs on the heartstrings a bit. I thought the friendship between the two characters was moving, and I thought Jennifer Lawrence is phenomenal in this movie. Once again, if it was up to me, I would nominate her for the Oscar for this movie. It is legitimately some of her best work, and Andrew Barth Feldman, I also think, did a really great job. So honestly, this movie just completely worked for me. I loved it when I first saw it, and it's only sat well with me. As of right now, it is in my top 10 movies of the year. I love it to that extent. There's potential it could be pushed out, but there's a good chance I'll be talking about this movie again when I do that list. So, yes. By the way, that list is probably coming out in March now because I cannot find The Zone of Interest, and I still need to see American Fiction and some other movies, so I'm like, you know what, I'll just push it back to March again. I was hoping to get it out today, actually, but that's not the way things worked out. But what are your biggest surprises of 2023? Let me know in the comments down below. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Stay tuned for more videos soon. And Gavin, out.